My name is Angelene Naidoo. I was born as a South African of Indian descent in a small town and raised not only by my parents, but by my grandparents, aunts, uncles, and our next door neighbors. 6 years ago, I moved away from my close-knit family, first to England and then to this country, the Netherlands. So why did I tell you all of this information about myself? Well, these are the things that define me. This is my identity. When people have to identify themselves, they usually mention their homeland, family, race, or life-altering experiences like moving countries or buying a dog. Most importantly, they mention their culture. Culture sets the basis of our psychology, which in turn drives our behavior. And if our behavior doesn't define us, what does? So what is culture? Culture is essentially about two factors. It is about social group acceptance and familiar behavior. And what really puts these two factors into context is when you can compare one culture to another. I will compare South African culture to Dutch culture as I have lived in both countries, and I have seen how people react differently to situations because of their cultural influences. Dutch people are considered to be very straightforward people, otherwise termed Dutch bluntness. South Africans, in contrast, are taught to act differently based on the situation they are in or the audience. Thus, it is quite easy to see why there can be a miscommunication between these two people coming from different parts of the world. And this has to do with perception, because culture affects the way we process information. I remember a time when my cousin and I were watching an advert on TV of two girls kissing. As I have lived in the Netherlands for the past 5 years, I saw nothing new or extremely unusual about this. My cousin, on the other hand, was shocked that they would show such a bold display on TV. You see, in 34 countries in Africa, being gay is a death sentence. And although South Africa does not have a law against it, it is still unfortunately frowned upon to be gay. Culture is such a vast topic, and it is so very different depending on the land and region you are looking at. Therefore, it is quite difficult to fully understand every aspect of culture. However, throughout the years, people have developed ways of looking at culture through certain viewpoints. One of the viewpoints you can look at culture through is through the way it is structured. An example of how culture can be structured is the emphasis it places on hierarchy. Some cultures highlight the different positions of power based on social status or the amount of money you earn. In some cultures, the difference in power within the relationship between men and women is a more prominent aspect than in other cultures. In South Africa, the man undoubtedly occupies the higher position as the head of the family. Although the wife might have a higher paying job, he is usually in charge of the finances. And although the wife might have longer working hours, she is responsible for the upbringing of the children. In countries such as the Netherlands, where gender equality is such a fundamental aspect of the culture, generally the family dynamics are such that there is equal power within the relationship. The women have equal financial power based on their personal earnings. And I have witnessed, whilst watching Dutch families interact for the past 5 years, that the man has as much family responsibility as the woman. Another place hierarchy can be seen is within the interactions between children and adults. In the Netherlands, children are respected and treated as individuals from a very young age. Generally, if a child were to come up to his mother while she is in a conversation, she will stop and she will talk to him. Also, children sit at the dinner table with the adults. As a result, children in the Netherlands grow up with a confidence that their opinion will always be listened to, if not always respected. It is very different in South Africa. In South Africa, children are treated as less than adults until they have matured to a certain point. To refer back to the same example from before, in that situation, the mother would say, "Be quiet, the adults are talking." Also, when I was a child, I sat at a different table from the adults whilst we were having dinner. As such, South Africans grow up with a mentality that you need to earn your right to express your opinion. And often this mentality is as good a motivation to improve yourself as any. Talking about all these aspects of culture makes it seem like very long-term mechanisms, but actually culture has changed and it has been formed through various historical events to become what it is today. And the biggest cause of cultural change can be seen as technology. To fully see how technology has changed our culture, we need to look at the history of technology. So let's go all the way back. Let's go to 1760. Imagine yourself as a worker during the Industrial Revolution. This means long hours working in factories alongside people you have no relation to. You are no longer surrounded by familiar behavior. You no longer know what is socially acceptable because the rules aren't as black and white as they have always been. Your culture has just drastically changed. This transition from a small town mentality to a city mentality was nothing less than chaos. And as art is a symbol of our culture, this chaos is reflected in the literature associated with that time. Take, for example, William Blake's poem, The Chimney Sweeper. Herein he talked about what he viewed as the evils of industrialization. Our culture was changed once again by every invention that made it easier for us to travel. When people travel, they are exposed to other cultures. In the Netherlands, when the bicycle was invented, it very quickly became a reliable and accepted source of transport. And there it is again, that word accepted. People liked it. In fact, they liked it so much that the Dutch government began to build an entire infrastructure for the bicycle. Thus, they unavoidably rooted the bicycle into Dutch culture. Until today, Amsterdam is considered the bicycle capital of the world. When people travel, not only are they changed as they are exposed to different cultures, but also the people in the places they have traveled to are changed as they witness people with different lifestyles and ways of thinking. So it is very much a two-way road. And once again, our culture was changed with the invention of the internet and social media. With the internet, we no longer have a need to physically travel to be exposed to other cultures, as we have virtually free access to movies and music from all over the world. One of the clearest examples of this influence is Bollywood, which has increasingly become westernized. Where once the clothes were traditional saris, now you often see jeans and t-shirts. And where once the dances were traditional Indian dances, now it is heavily influenced by hip-hop and modern street dance. Forming an opinion about a subject, which is a psychological process, is influenced by culture, because culture sets the basis of our psychology and the way we think. Now, not only are we influenced by close culture coming from our family and from our government, but by culture all across the world. Populist politicians don't only have support from their own country, but rather their political strength stems from a worldwide network of people. People with particular political views are in contact with people all around the world that have similar views. And this is because with social media, not only are you exposed to other cultures, but you can interact with them. This interaction means that initiatives can lead to worldwide demonstrations within a matter of weeks. And yes, I am referring to the Women's March that happened after the American presidential inauguration. 673 marches on all 7 continents. And the officials that organized this did so via social media. We are the most connected generation. As such, this means 2 things. 1, whereas in the past, the effects of technology would take several years, now it is a matter of weeks. And 2, we have already had a seemingly worldwide set of values reflected in our human rights. Now, with social media, when those rights are viewed to be under threat, it can gain worldwide attention within a matter of days, if not hours. The Women's March regarded a number of rights that they viewed were under threat, including women's rights, gay rights, and healthcare reform. Yes, the internet has drawbacks. so many situations are lost under the flood of information we are bombarded with online. But the fact of the matter is that technology has already changed our culture in the past. And now more than ever, we see a rapid change as we are increasingly exposed to other cultures and other ways of thinking. The question of change is no longer in question. Now the question is, do we fight this change with a fear of losing our culture? Or do we embrace this incredible exposure to other mentalities as an opportunity to learn, and an opportunity to broaden our perspectives? Thank you.